How good? Okay, car. Hai car, itu saja. Hai car. Ese dulu, yo sih sih. Kita nak bawa baca punya buku. Okay. Terus itu orang. Benar.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting. I welcome everyone. There are two important words in the United Nations, and the two words are please and thank you. Thank you for participating in this important session entitled Enhancing Climate Resilience in the Mountain Ecosystems, Learning from Water and Others Around the World. Please enjoy this session as you will have the opportunity to first get the presentations from the subject matter specialist. And in the later stage, you will get the opportunity to interact with the panelists who I will introduce. My name is MOKOENA. I am the project coordinator of Adaptation Fund Supported Project executed by the government of Lesotho, taking a lecture from the Web program. Before I go into the program of this session, I would like to give the facts about the mountain ecosystem. Mountain ecosystems provide several vital resources and services, particularly saving as the water towers. They provide the basis of most mountain livelihood, and the resources are also essential for population downstream and are prerequisites for numerous critical infrastructure such as energy, health, agriculture, and economic development. Certainly, the ecosystems are exposed to immense threats and stand at the front of climate change. This session will unpack the systematic, multifaceted, and transformative nature of this risk and explore integrated, nature-based, and risk-informed solutions to advance the resilience of mountain ecosystems. It will be clear the presentation and the panel discussion on how broadcasting elements such as gender and protection, environmental and social safeguarding are operationalized in different contexts. In that context, the discussion will provide good practices and success stories from the mountain countries of the Instituto of Lesotho, Australia, and Peru. Austria. The session will deal into issues of risk and resilience in the context of mountain ecosystems and water security in a panel discussion. Without further ado, let me call Mr. FANANA, who is the National Coordinator of the Integrated Management Project, which is called RENOCA, that is integrated in the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. FANANA and the advancing ICM governance to a citizenry movement in the social world, a good practice which requires international management, which is content will be as follows. We want to areas and and success factors that we are using for the ecosystem-based approach in the world. But before I get started, let me start and introduce what is environment.
The water tower of Southern Africa is in danger of drying up, and we need your help to make sure this doesn't happen. High up in the Maluti Mountains of Lesotho,
can move on to the next slide.
The water tower of Southern Africa is in danger of drying up, and we need your help to make sure this doesn't happen. High up in the Maluti Mountains of Lesotho, more than 3,000 meters above sea level, lies a vast and unique highland wetlands ecosystem that is more important than you can imagine. This is the source of the entire Orange Sinku River Basin, which from here stands out like a network of life-giving arteries flowing almost 1 million square kilometers from Lesotho across South Africa, Botswana, and parts of Namibia. The Orange Sinku Basin supports more than 90 million people, from smallholder farmers to the very biggest agricultural concerns, from entrepreneurs to SMEs and large corporations, from industry to energy. Its water is vital to agriculture, as well as to the food security and livelihoods of the communities within the basin, especially in Lesotho, where river catchments are directly responsible for 22% of the country's income and an incredible 30% of the country's employment. Even outside of Lesotho, millions rely on this important water resource. In South Africa, the Gauteng province, which generates up to 40% of the country's national income, is heavily dependent on the Orange Sinku River Basin for its agriculture, industry, and drinking water. Botswana is another important water transfer recipient, and the estuary ecosystem in Namibia wouldn't survive without this water. But severe catchment degradation is threatening to disrupt the flow, impacting livelihoods and national economic gains in Lesotho, and causing water insecurity in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. Every hour, Lesotho loses the equivalent of 300 lorry loads of topsoil. This is due to erosion and the overuse of land for the planting of crops and grazing of animals by a growing number of people with no other livelihood. Climate change and increasing weather extremes have further aggravated the situation. A loss of water supply schemes due to catchment degradation would shrink Lesotho's economy and cripple communities and businesses along the nearly 1 million square kilometers of the Orange Sinku catchment. We are facing a very real and immediate threat to our region's water security and economic growth. But there are many people hard at work to address these complex issues. In Lesotho, Renuka means we are a river. Renuka is a citizen movement and a national program for integrated catchment management in Lesotho and the Orange Sinku Basin. This important partnership between government, private businesses, and ordinary citizens is committed to managing catchments sustainably for water security and economic resilience for the people who depend on this resource for their lives and livelihoods. Like the water itself, the Renuka movement starts in Lesotho and expands to all countries in the Orange Sinku River Basin. Its vision is to build a sense of shared ownership and protection of the natural resources. Renuka aims to put this vision into practice through a transboundary multi-stakeholder water stewardship partnership which fosters collective action. Renuka's integrated planning for catchment management involves collecting information about the geography and geology of the area, the crucial ecosystems and their services, land and water uses and degradation, and the effects of climate change on catchments and the people who depend on them. This integrated plan is what allows us to take well-informed decisions and coordinate action to preserve our basin. Through wetland protection and rehabilitation, sustainable grazing and agricultural practices, erosion control, gully retentions, and reforestation. But we cannot do it alone. We call on the government, private sectors and civil societies of Lesotho and Southern Africa to partner with the Renoga movement to contribute, whether financially or in kind, through technical know-how, resources or any other avenue. To collaborate across borders in a multi-stakeholder approach, to plan and implement catchment rehabilitation and management measures to the benefit of Lesotho, the Orange Sinku Basin and the entire Southern African region. Join the Renoga movement. Visit www.renoga.org and get involved to protect our and your most precious resource.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, and thanks for the technical stuff that you experienced during the filming of the video. I think the message was very well. I think you enjoyed the video as much as we do. And I'll dive straight into my presentation about today on the approach that we as an addiction part of our climate adaptation tools. In summary, super standards are a vital resource not only for the country but for the entire organisation. But despite the importance of this ecosystem, the catchment continues to remain as fruitful, unsustainable land practices and catchment management in the area. The annual acquisition rate of natural resources in the country is estimated at 6% of GDP. Every hour, it is estimated that every hour Lesotho produces about 300 loads of horse wire due to soil erosion. This translates in a significant reduction of arable land that in turn leads to food insecurity in Lesotho. Put this in perspective, the impact that this has on crop and finance is equivalent to 48% of the health expenditure, or 40% of tax revenue, or 1% of education expenditure. Then Renova was implemented to execute a chance to invest the data through an ecosystem-based approach. The ecosystem-based approach that we use include identifying and quantifying and measuring the ecosystem, and then the services that it provides, the status quo, and future prediction of the services that it provides. Identifying of potential actions that need to be done, and estimation of the effect and such on the ecosystem. Planning and holistically and efficiently and right and also implementing the measures for the catchment. This is done through harmonizing and reviewing relevant and associated policies. The assessments that we have thus far include participatory grading approaches based on capacity building and grounded indigenous learning systems, also addressing gender equity. We also are using a pick-to-value approach that includes not only the catchment management that we are working with, but the whole catchment management area. Our explain what is by a catchment management area. We also are using climate risk vulnerability assessment And we also have developed a configure of various for users that does the implementation of ICL measures. We also have developed our atlas to actually assess if our measures are having any impact. And are also developing a financing mechanism that will include innovative approaches based on adaptation and other approaches. So what are we doing in Achievers? We are doing this through 6 change areas, and I will briefly introduce this. These are capital management, policy and guidance, financial and investment, skills and knowledge, awareness and behavior change, as well as data and monitoring. Through capital management area, we have had multiple building approaches based on capacity building and founded IKS in the past. We are also using to value approach guided by a strategic capital management area plans, and also by climate risk vulnerability assessment, as well as a continuum of measures guiding this implementation. The climate risk and vulnerability assessment identifies adaptation options with a focus on ecosystem-based adaptation. This can include anything like people's assessment report, development of integrated subject management plans, guidelines for water resources classification and resource quality objectives, and consolidation and updating of the national water inventory. We also have a Montaña, the soil and water conservation Montaña, that is designed to assist user groups for interventions that work on site-specific situations. This Montaña will soon be launched in the country for everyone to use. If you see a developer, you know what measures you can apply based on this Montaña. We also have a financing architecture, and our national resource valuation is at the heart of this financing architecture. And it looks at our financial sustainability strategy. The financing architecture is looking at innovative revenue generation as well as ecosystem valuation. The economic and social evaluation of the water in Lesotho highlights the importance of this resource. And also, yes, if you have data to validate this, it is a valuable key to attract the private sector. As well as understanding the value of this ecosystem is also important for this informed approach to national strategic development plan and the growth of the country depends on the natural resources of the country. Another success factor that we have under ecosystem-based approach is the land cover atlas, which we will be launching today at the soft launch, but are also launching in the country at the end of this call. This is important that data is a critical factor in community security. The land cover atlas was designed to show the impact of the intervention that we are having, and to be updated annually with capacity that we are developing in the country. As I mentioned, this presentation or this event today is actually a foreground of the land cover atlas. I will now showcase what this entails. The main feature of this land cover atlas, as mentioned, is based on ecosystems, accounting, and safety. The main existing ecosystem account frameworks and biodiversity policies at global, national, and local level have identified that the countries to make informed decision making, they need to have data, those special data specifically to map and assess this ecosystem sensitivity. And as such, Lesotho is no different than one developed this ecosystem land cover atlas. It showcases our ecosystems and freshwater ecosystems. And our atlas is based on four main factors, four main steps, which include mapping of ecosystem extent, and assessment of the ecosystems themselves, extent, the condition of those ecosystems, the assessment of the ecosystem sensitivity delivered by the system, and also the integrated ecosystem assessment and as to how that the conditions relate to the service provided by the ecosystem. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your attention. I will just end my slide by showing the two special data that you can get from our dashboard from the mental atlas that we have developed. This includes build-out areas, cropland, trees, water bodies, wetlands, shrublands, grasslands, grass surfaces, etc., as well as the extent of lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. FANANA. That was a very presentation where we have seen a holistic approach in the execution of the integrated catchment management. We have seen very good tools that Renoka project is using, and what is very inspiring is the transition into the use of the digital tools into the whole monitoring and evidence generation of the good work that you are doing, but also the sustainability part of it. Now, I would like to call Mr. GÜNTER LIEBEL, who will give a presentation on climate change effects on mountain regions in Austria, focusing on water resources and hazard management. Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, I want to thank the organizers of this workshop, of this side event, for all the efforts that they made to make it happen that we can have this meeting today. And it is really a pleasure that I can exchange views and also maybe best practices with colleagues from the Kingdom of Lesotho and of Peru. My name is GÜNTER and I come from a small country in Austria, and I will give you, in Europe it's Austria, and I will give you short overview about the climate change effects on mountain regions in Austria, and I hope that we can start with the presentation. Just to give you a short overview about my presentation, some words about climate change challenges in the Austrian Alps. What is the water demand in Austria? Is it decreasing in the future or increasing? What about the flood risk management in flood-prone areas? And increasing number of extreme weather events. And the question is, how can we mitigate climate change and strengthen climate resilience of mountain ecosystems? Just to let you know and to give you a short overview how we are and where we are. We are a small country in the heart of Europe. We have around 9 million inhabitants, and we are covered by the Eastern Alps. The highest point in Austria in the Alps is around 3,900 meters, and the lowest point in Austria is around 100 meters. So you see there's a quite big difference between the sea level in Austria. 50% of the territory is covered by forest, and about 40% of the total area is around 1,000 meters above the sea level. But only 39% of our national territory is permanently inhabitable due to the mountainous regions. What are the water resources in Austria? We are a water-wealthy country. We have an average annual precipitation of 1,100 millimeters. This is quite a good figure. The Austrian drinking water supply is covered 100% by groundwater from wells and springs, which is also unique for Europe. Water supply, around 61%, and industry account for a large proportion of the total groundwater use. Agriculture has only a share of around 10% of the groundwater use in Austria. And at the moment, we do have around 2,000 groundwater monitoring sites to assess water quality, and we have around 1,000 monitoring sites to check other aspects of water. What is the water demand in Austria? Water demand per day by a person is around 130 liters, which is an average in Europe, but nevertheless quite high. But due to the future events, we will increase the water demand by 2050 between 11 and 15%. So there will be an increase, and the question is there enough water for this increase we are expecting in 2050? What is the water balance of Austria? You see here the figures. We have around 1,100 millimeters per precipitation. Evapotranspiration is about 500 millimeters, and there is a total runoff to other countries, which is quite high. The strong contrast between the west, which is the Alpine region, with around 3,000 millimeters a year, to the dry lowland regions, which is only 500 millimeters a year, is quite a big difference. Summer in Austria is the wettest season until now, and more than 96% of Austria's territory is drained by the river Danube. The river Danube is one of the largest rivers in Europe, and Austria is prone to flooding and landslides every year. What are the effects of climate change? The alpine areas, as we also heard from our colleague from Lesotho, the alpine areas or the mountain areas are climate sensitive. In Austria, the temperature has increased during the last years by 1.8 up to 2 years in the average. This is around 20% higher compared to global land areas. Also the high alpine winter temperatures, that means high alpine areas are about 2,500 meters, have increased by up to 2.4 centigrade, which within the last 90 years, which is also a quite high number. And the precipitation and water discharge will increase in winter and decrease in summer. Thus, these have an effect in the agriculture use also for the areas. You saw in the picture, I'm not sure if you can really see that due to the climate change, the changes in the flow, in the low flow parameters are really changing within the last year. What are the groundwater scenarios for water availability by 2050? I told you that in Austria 100% of the drinking water comes from the groundwater, and last studies have shown that the water availability by 2050 will decrease up to 23%, which is a very high number. At the moment we have 5.1 billion cubic meters per year, and this will decrease to 3.9 billion cubic meters per year, which is really a high number, and we have to take care about these numbers. The low groundwater recharge is due to the climate change. The decrease of groundwater availability in the alpine areas will be stronger compared to the lowlands. And therefore we have to manage regional dry periods and an increasing water demand at the same time, and this is the challenge for the future years. As we heard from our colleague from Lesotho, we also have a very good monitoring and flood forecasting system in Austria. You can see on the left-hand picture that this state hydrological observation network had been started and established in the year 1893. So this is a very long time ago. And we have a very dense network. I mentioned that we have around 2,000 sites for the quality, but we have around 1,000 monitoring sites of measuring for other various parameters. These are real-time data transfer monitoring sites, and the whole system, the EHIL, provides current data, and therefore we can have an early warning system for floods. The flood forecasting system is also working together with our neighboring countries. We have different rainfall runoff models, and we can have a forecast for floods up to 3 days in advance. All these data we are collecting can guarantee that the flood forecasting is working quite well. You see here some pictures for past flood events, which is also dramatically for the people living in this house, and that had been after rainfall events, but also due to flavial floods or flash floods in the last years. What have we started? We have started to designate risk areas. These risk areas are called areas of potentially significant flood risk. And these risk areas have been designated first by the significant past flood events and possible future ones, and of the hazard information that which are still available. In Austria, we have at the moment 416 designated risk areas where we are trying to protect people from the floods. And you see here in the picture that the Indonesian areas for 30, 100 and 300 years flood events in different shades on the picture. And on the red point in the picture over there where you see Austria, you can see where we have these 416 designated risk areas. We will try to give you a short movie about the flood risk management system in Austria. I'm sorry, I think it doesn't work, but no problem, then we will move to the next slide.
Grid flood statistically occurs once in 100 years. In Austria, approximately 1 million people live in areas potentially affected by floods similar to HQ 100. Extreme events can cause damage even in municipalities with existing retention basins or flood protection measures. Flood protection measures, therefore, cannot guarantee total safety. The so-called residual risk always remains. A lot of measures can be applied to reduce flood risks as well as residual risks. Flood risk management thereby refers to 4 objectives. The designation of hazard zones and flood-aware zoning restricts the construction of building and infrastructure in flood-prone areas, and therefore helps to prevent an increase of flood risk. Only a holistic planning approach ensures targeted avoidance of new risks. For already existing buildings and infrastructure, apart from protection measures, object-oriented demountable barriers can be used. Flood-adapted management in agriculture and forestry, sediment management, and regulations for industry and trade contribute significantly to a reduction of existing risks. The availability of forecasting and early warning systems, as well as coordination with the emergency management authorities, can increase the coping capacity. Finally, everybody can contribute to reduce flood risk. Steps should be taken to promote awareness of flood hazard and flood risk. Appropriate actions during a flood, based on proper information and education, can ensure safety of one and all. Along our rivers, numerous measures have already been implemented. It is of utmost importance to consider not only the water body itself, but also the catchment area. Within the framework of the Flood Risk Management Plan, an integrated planning approach was implemented for 416 risk areas. Numerous measures can help to reduce the overall flood risk in Austria. Let's benefit from them. The Austrian Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Regions and Tourism.
So, thank you very much to the technicians for this short movie.
Overall flood risk in Austria. Let's benefit from them. The Austrian Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Regions and Tourism.
So, thank you very much to the technicians for this short movie.
Overall flood risk in Austria. Let's benefit from them. The Austrian Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Regions and Tourism.
If you can switch back to the power presentation, would be perfect. Thanks. What are now other effects of climate change in the Austrian mountain areas? These are extreme events and the so-called sediment-related disasters due to the stabilized mountain slopes. You can see some pictures how these sediment disasters really affect villages and towns. And the fact is that the release of rockfall, landslides and rapid mass movements are increased during the last century. The extreme events but also affect the forest area. The degradation of mountain forests by extreme fires had increased during the last years, and especially the so-called protective forests, which is around a third of the Austrian forests, are exceptionally vulnerable to storm, snow pressure, and the bark decay, and that has an effect to all the people living in the areas down from the forests, because the forests are gone. And this is the direct consequences of the global warming. What are now the climate protection measures we have to fulfill within the next future? In the field of the water demand, we have to improve efficiency, and we hope that digital technologies for water demand control can be introduced, also the water meters and the connection of new pipes. But we also have to reduce the demand of water. We have to adapt the management strategies, and we have also to fulfill new irrigation methods for the agriculture side. From the point of the water resources, we have to foster groundwater formation. We have to increase water retention in the catchment areas. We have to ensure drinking water supply, and we have to fail-safe infrastructure. And we have to document the climate change so that we can have additional measures in the future. In the field of flood control, we have to structural measures and maintenance, which cost quite a lot of money. We are investing every year around 200 million euros to maintain the structural measures against floods. We have to continue in mapping the flood risks with the so-called hazard zone planning. And of course, as it was also mentioned by my colleague from Lesotho, we have to work close, and we have to cooperate with all the stakeholders, with the municipalities and with the water associations in Austria. Just to sum up, ecosystems in mountain areas are highly sensitive to climate change. There is a decrease in groundwater resources, and the occurrence of extreme water events and flood risk will increase in the next centuries. We need solid databases and the designation of flood risk areas. We have to monitor constantly the groundwater availability. We have to discuss new irrigation strategies for agricultural purposes. The ecological and hydromorphological development and restoration of the water bodies have to be renovated, and we have to strengthen resilience by providing models for special planning. We need and we have to continue a close cooperation, especially with the drinking water suppliers and the local suppliers in the areas. We have to foster the constructional measures, and we have to raise awareness in all the areas, and we have to involve the public for the effects of the climate change in the mountain region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. It is becoming clear we are seeing the reality of climate change in different contexts. We are seeing different episodes of hazards that affect different sectors and affect the different socio-economic groups and precisely the livelihood. And in this regard, I would want to call Mrs. Mirella, who will also give a presentation, but diving deep now into the livelihood issues and how climate change and the whole work that we should be doing and the focus areas that we should